Okay, well, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order this evening. If able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Madam Clerk, roll, please.
Mayor Pape,
Here?
Councilmember Shavetta. Here. Councilmember Hands.
Here.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Here.
Councilmember Leahy.
Here.
Councilmember Neal.
Here.
Councilmember Ryder.
Here.
Councilmember Silvers.
Here.
Councilmember Yodridge.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, next item up is public items. Members of the public are encouraged to use the time to make comments about matters that do not appear in the agenda. Comments about items on the regular agenda will be taken up as each item is considered. Please note individuals making public comments to be limited to 5 minutes per our governing body rules. I have one individual at this point that has signed up, Ruben Cosmer. If you'd like to come forward, and I think you want to speak about short-term rentals. And No, actually, anybody that wants to speak about short-term rentals needs to speak up at this meeting because you'll be able to attend the other meeting, but you won't be able to talk later. So please go on record right now. Thank you.
Great, yeah.
We'll give you our address too, sir. for the
Yeah,
record.
Ruben Kosmeyer, 5800 Hadley Street. So I was really excited to see short-term rentals show up on that work session. I'm hoping that you guys do vote some pretty reasonable regulations. Those examples that were in the work session agenda looked pretty good. I do like, it wasn't in the suggested regulations, but I think it was what Fairway did, which is, if you're filing for a short-term rental, you at least notify your neighbors. I thought that seemed pretty reasonable. And then I do have one question. It said something along the lines of can't be closer to than 1,000 feet to existing short-term rentals as of July 1st, or maybe it was June 1st. And I'm just curious if people will be able to make their short-term rental applications before the home or structure is habitable. There are a couple on my street that I have a feeling are going to be turned into short-term rentals. One's had a blue tarp instead of a roof for 2 to 3 months now. And it'd be cool if, that person had to make those repairs, sooner rather than later. And so, yeah, I'm just curious about how that would play out.
Mr. Engel, would you like to address that as far as from a time standpoint? If obviously we have not enacted anything at this point, but
Yeah, it'd really be up to council. I think part of the reason that we put that in there was so that there would be an allowance for people that were thinking about getting a short-term rental, as opposed to putting a new policy and enacting it in 2 weeks or in the same night, so that there would be some time for people to either get their stuff together or have some time to consider it. There might be other considerations that the city attorney.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons I put that date in there is because we're requiring our existing short-term rentals to become licensed, and so we were giving them kind of a grace period to be able, even though they're currently operating, not even in construction, but currently operating as short-term rentals, an opportunity to get into City Hall, make the appropriate application, get the appropriate approvals. So that's why that date is in there.
Does a owner of a home have to have the house, habitable before they start filing that short-term rental, long-term rental paperwork?
I would look to my community development director on.
They do not.
Okay.
So I will say, I think the house with the blue tarp, we can discuss later, but if it's the same one I'm thinking of, that does have a code case on it.
Gotcha.
So if it's the same one we're talking about.
It's just, I don't know, 57
It could be.
or something.
Yeah, I'll look that up.
Yeah.
If you want to send me the address, I'll
Okay,
look it
cool.
up, but that one may have a code case on it already.
Gotcha. Thanks.
thank you, Mr. Cosmer. Is there anyone else? No one else has signed up. It doesn't preclude you. Yeah, go ahead. Please come forward, sir. Give your name and address for the record.
Billy Crone, 6633 Wed Street. I am not in favor of additional regulations on short-term rentals. I think a lot of the fear comes from like people splashing in a pool too late at night, nuisances like a roof that's not taken care of, things like that. I think those are already addressed under code, and if not, maybe those offensive behaviors should be. But to say that we're going to treat a short-term rental more strict simply because it's a short-term rental, I don't think is useful or fair, and it goes against the property rights of people who own homes in this community. Most people want to live in them. Some people do rent them. Some people short-term rent them. But as long as whoever is there is not causing problems, I think that's what we should focus on. I know there are residents in the city who have caused problems who are not short-term rentals. I've sat in that seat and listened to people come up and complain about various conditions before, and those were residents. So consider that. Consider regulating the offensive behaviors, the problems, and not the short-term rental itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crone. Is there anyone else out there that would like to speak on this topic or any other topic that isn't on the agenda? Okay. I see no one else coming forward, so we will close out the public items. Next item up is the consent agenda. All items listed under this heading are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the council member so requests, in which case that item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Considering that we only have one item on the agenda, the consent agenda this evening, does anyone have any concerns they would like to talk about that before I ask for a motion? Okay, I see no, I would entertain a motion for that. Then go ahead, Mr. Silvers.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that the council approve consent agenda number 1.
Okay, we have a motion. I have a second. Go ahead, Ms. Shatter.
Mr. Mayor, second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodrich.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item up is a proclamation, and I normally like to read these proclamations, and I will read this one. This is unfortunately one that I wish I didn't have to read, but the fact that this is occurring, it's very important that we do and that we recognize the issues that are going on. Whereas children are our nation's most vulnerable members and the most valuable helping to shape the future of our society. And whereas childhood trauma can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects throughout an individual's lifetime and impact future generations of their family. And whereas childhood trauma, including abuse and neglect, is a serious problem affecting every community, including in Merriam, and finding solutions requires input and action from everyone. And whereas effective child abuse prevention activities help reduce or eliminate risk and promote the social, emotional, and developmental well-being of children, and whereas children who live in families with access to concrete economic and social support systems are less likely to experience abuse and neglect, and whereas we acknowledge that to solve the public health issue of abuse and neglect, we must work together to change hearts and mindsets by centering the needs of families, breaking down bias and barriers, and inspiring action from partners in prevention, as prevention remains the best defense of our children and our families. Now therefore, I, Bob Pape, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of Merriam, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, proclaimed on the 25th day of March 2024. I wished we didn't have to do that, but we all need to be working toward that. Okay, the next item up is the Fire Department Annual Report. Chief Long, if you'd come forward and share with us everything that's happened in the last year.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Hopefully you've had some time to look over this. I'll hit the high points and stand for any questions afterwards. There we go. All right, our 2023 annual report. I will skip that opening. That's me, don't need to watch that. So history, just a little background. Overland Park Fire Department's been established since 1919. We're 105 years old. We actually existed before the city of Overland Park. City was incorporated in May of 1960. We were actually Overland Park Fire Department, Inc., and contracted fire department services with the city up until 2003 when we were incorporated as part of the city. Kind of some highlights from 2023, we did get reaccredited through the Commission of Fire Accreditation International, which is actually through the Center for Public Safety Excellence. So just to kind of put that in perspective, there's about 27,000 fire departments in the United States. There's about 360 that are accredited. But when you take the number of accredited departments with the size of the population we serve, which is about 222,000, and serve 125 square miles, that gets you in the ballpark of about 30 departments that meet that same statistic. And then when you throw our ISO rating of 1 in there, that's a fairly limited fire department grouping with an ISO of 1 and accredited. So this will be our third accreditation process. So we are in our next 5 years, and then we'll go before the commission again in 5 years. And each year we have to do a compliance report that will come out in July to make sure that we're hitting all the benchmarks that were established in this accreditation process. So we're in our third time through being in front of the accreditation body. There's a video in our annual report from Forrest Taylor. He was one of the peer assessors that came in, evaluated us on site. There were 4 peer assessors that came in for about a week, and then we went to Chicago to sit before the board and answer any questions they had to get approved for accreditation. So the next page here is basically who we serve. This is a layout of our station layout. We have 11 stations, 9 traditional, 2 squad houses. Like I said, we serve 125 square miles of territory. We go county line to county line. We actually run into Miami County as part of our last merger, which was South County or Fire District 2 that was down on the south end of Overland Park, which is roughly 191st and Metcalf, 183rd and Mission. So we do serve a population of about 222,000 in the area we serve. And then, we're not just fire and emergency medical services. We also do hazardous material response. We do swift water rescue, confined space, high angle as part of our tech rescue team. And we also do wildland firefighting, which really came on board when we merged with South County in 2021. We also have arson investigators on shift that work with our police department and our district attorney's office. And then we have peer support team members as well. So a lot of the individuals you see hold, as our previous chief would say, different merit badges and are required to take on different trainings to make sure they keep up their CEs to maintain those criteria. This is just an overview of Station 41. We should take possession sometime in the end of April, hopefully, and look to kind of do a soft move in May, and then something more official in June. There's actually an ambulance that's stationed here that's actually relocated up here at Station 6 for the meantime, but this will be a co-location between Johnson County MedAct and us. We'll have 2 units that operate out of here on the fire side, and then Johnson County MedAct will have a transport unit that'll be located at 41s. This is a makeup of our team. We've got 200, and actually it's 220 total paid employees. We converted a part-time support services technician to full-time actually in the 2023 calendar year. And so we have 220 people on staff. The majority of those individuals reside in operations. That's about 193 individuals that are actually out in the field responding to incidents. So if you break down our budget, we have just under a $30 million budget. $2.7 million of that in 2023 was Merriam, was responsible by Merriam. And then if you break that down by the number of residents we serve, that's about $147 per household for the services we do provide. Now, getting into the numbers, we responded to 24,414 calls in 2023. We should eclipse 25,000 calls in 2024. By the way, our calls increase annually. For the city of Merriam, responses within the city limits of Merriam, that was 1,972 calls in the city of Merriam. Just under 1,600 of those were EMS calls. Our splits are about 80-20, 80% EMS, 20% fire. I believe in the city of Merriam, there were 14 structure fires. I think 11 of those were residents, and then we had 3 commercial structure fires. And we'll talk about that here in a second when we break that down. You can see kind of the heat map there to the right. Kind of a breakdown. Your bright red is your high use grids, and then as you get transition to blue, that's your colder grids with 0 to 80 calls in those grids. And you can tell up here in Merriam, we have one grid there that's red, so that's 650 to 1,500 calls per year in that grid alone. Those are 1 mile square grids. Our average response time to an incident is 4 minutes and 34 seconds. We try to keep that under the 5-minute threshold. And then that's a breakdown of calls per month. It kind of picks up in the summertime, cools off in the wintertime. And then our splits, like I said, are 80 and 20, 80% EMS. Yeah. This is an area I want to kind of draw attention to because we've worked pretty diligently with response crews, our GIS department, the National Fire Academy, to really break down the basically property saved. Typically, how we'd report this out is we respond to calls, structure fires specifically, and we would say that total loss for this was $2 million or what have you. We try to keep that per annually, try to less than $6 million of fire loss per year. But that didn't really tell the whole story, so we really worked with them to make sure we had a standardized reporting that was nationally recognized, and then work with our GIS to capture that. So for Overland Park, and then I'll get to Merriam, we broke it down. So estimated property and contents value involved of the properties we responded to. So in Overland Park, that's between 30 and 45 structure fires on residences per year. The total value that we came to of the property that we responded to was 137 million, just over that. Estimated property and content dollar loss from the fire, we held it to about 5.7 million. And so in effect, we were 95.85% effective in saving that property and contents that we responded to. On the commercial side, a little better. Typically commercial, depending on when the commercial occupancy was built, there's probably some fire protection systems, some codes adoption in there that probably aids us in our extinguishment. We kept that to basically 1.1 million of the 170 million that we responded to. So for the city of Merriam, we were called to residents, and the total value and contents of those residents we were called to was $24 million. A little over that, estimated property contents dollar loss from fire, we were able to stop at 114,000, so we were 99.53% effective. And then the flip side, on the commercial side, which I believe there were 3 commercial fires, that total contents and dollar loss was 18.7. So just a better way to break that down, I think it's more accurate in actually explaining what we do when we arrive on scene, when we're called to those incidents. And then for the county, Southern Johnson County, everything was residential. They don't have any commercial responses that we had down there. Another area I'd like to draw your attention to is the giving 100% for the 80%. So we're talking about Utstein survival rating. So basically, there's a national criteria that we put into a database, and if it's a witnessed arrest and we arrive on scene and that individual's in a shockable rhythm, the basically percent chance that we can revive them and they exit the hospital returning to a normal life. So with 0 deficits or 0 to very little deficits. So our Utstein rating, or Utstein percentage, was 63% and 66%. So to put that in perspective, the national is about 25%. The county itself is 47% with no bystander CPR, 43% with bystander CPR. And so our goal in Overland Park is always to be the part of the county that's pulling up and not bringing down the baseline. So to have an Utstein survival in the mid-60s is fairly incredible. I mean, that puts us right on par with when you look at across nationally. Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona area does it very well. The Seattle area does it very well. They're kind of held as the gold standard. We can compete with any of them. So, and we've done a lot of work over the last several years to make sure that our cardiac arrest, not only our response, but then through our Johnson County medical director, our protocol application and how we interact with that is cutting edge, data driven, and really our medical director and our training team has driven that, and our numbers, I think, reflect that. And this talks about the chain of survival. So early access to 911, early hands-on bystander CPR, early defibrillation, early definitive ALS care from us when we arrive, and then early definitive hospital care equates to people surviving. We do have a prevention division. They are very active. They did 4,620 inspections in 2023 with 5,899 citations. We give people 30 days to fix the citations. If they don't fix them in 30 days, depending on what it is, we may give them a little more time, or we'll start a process to where we'll basically fine them for every week that they haven't complied with that, whatever we have deemed as a citation. And then our education breaks down. Our arson investigators try to definitively basically look at a cause of a fire. Unintended cooking still tends to be number 1 at 52. Careless discarding of smoking materials is 24. I would argue that if we could definitively prove all of those, it would be higher, but sometimes we just can't prove it, and electrical was 21. And then again, that breaks down the numbers of property value from fire loss. Like I said, we do have a very robust arson investigation task force that is comprised of our prevention division and on-shift personnel. They undergo extra training through the, basically, not only the police academy, but the fire academy, and then we work in conjunction with Overland Park PD officers who are also cross-trained in arson investigation, and then we have a relationship with the DA's office. Of the 82 fires we investigated in 2023, 8 were determined intentionally set. I think we've had 5 convictions from 2023 with some others pending as well. And we still have open cases that we're actively looking and working on. And then we have a training division that basically handles the upkeep of all of the merit badges of all of our personnel and making sure that we're on task with what we're supposed to know so we can respond. And so we average per responder about 236 hours of training that goes into whether it's just fire-based training or EMS-based training within the specialties. So your hazmat, wildland, technical rescue, peer support, and what have you. In our instructional hours at the training center is about 7,000 per year. Per ISO, which is our insurance adjuster's office, basically they'll come out and rate a department based on all the different criteria, 10 being the worst score, 1 being the best. We have a score of 1, and a lot of that is contributed to the amount of training that we do have to maintain. Pit Crew CPR video here. If you get time, you can watch that. That's a new undertaking to help boost our cardiac survival numbers, and basically it takes like a NASCAR concept of pit crew where everyone has an assigned task and you rotate through in certain areas, but other responders stay put, whether you're on the monitor, you're a med administrator, where you're the overall team leader, and that's a new concept we enacted in 2023 and are building out for 2024. And then there's some videos of our training center. If you have time, you can watch. We do have a partnership with the Blue Valley program. We've had that for, I think, going on 3 years now when we built our Station 8 on the Blue Valley Southwest campus. That was part of that. We actually have a cadet program that we've hired 2 of the Blue Valley students in our cadet program, looking as they go through their requirements at local colleges. Once they get their requirements, they would be eligible to apply for full-time status if we had openings. And actually, in May, we're getting an award for all the work we have done with Blue Valley through the Blue Valley education. And then responder wellness, one thing we do know is that this job does take a toll on people. So we have not only peer support, but we have physical well-being. We prescribe to NFPA 1582, which is our physical standard, so treadmill, blood work, eye test, hearing test, all of that good stuff, cancer screenings are part of our annual physical. And then we have a peer support team that goes through additional trainings that make sure that they can help responders that may be having difficulty. We work in concert with Johnson County Mental Health. And we do debriefings after critical incidents. We do diffusing after critical incidents. And we have 17 different members that basically are trained in advanced crisis mitigation, that if our members need extra help, they can reach out. They're spread across all our battalions and in our admin staff, so there's always someone that they can access if needed. And we continue to upgrade that program as well as we bring more people on. And then down below, there's different stories that we've done through either news outlets or things we've sponsored. Smoke alarm canvas, electrical battery fires. This is something that's not new to us, but it is challenging for us. So you've probably seen a lot of stories on the news about lithium-ion batteries and some of the concerns with that. So we've had some news stories with that. An unusual extrication, we had a dog whose head got stuck into the center of a tire. So we had to get the vet out and sedate, and then we cut the tire out from around the dog. That's the video of that. And then some recruitment videos. Megan Penrod's a lieutenant down at Station 4. We went down some hot pigs on the highway, which got a lot of traction in the news. And then we have other videos we've posted to the news as well. We had 2 different academies in 2023. We'll have another academy in 2024. And then we did have several retirements that amounted to about 132 years of service walking out the door. So we've had to replace those with new individuals. And then we had a previous retired firefighter, George Asinger, passed away in 2023. So the report was dedicated to that individual. So that's really a quick overview of the 2023 annual report. Happy to answer any questions. Hopefully you have time to watch the videos at other times. There's some pretty good stuff in there.
Any questions for Chief Long? Go ahead.
I had one, and this might be outside of your knowledge base, but you said the number of fires for improperly discarding of smoking materials. Mm-hmm. Do you know if that number went up in the Missouri side with legalization?
I don't know that specific. I can't speak to their numbers specifically. Yep. I probably know a person that I can ask and get those numbers for you, though.
Thanks.
Any other questions from Chief Long? Go ahead.
Yeah,
Caldwell.
each year since I've been on council, when we have this report, I've asked the chief about your efforts in diversity and inclusion. And I've been assured that you're working on it, and that's a priority. However, I'm a little disappointed that it's never mentioned in any of your annual reports. And when you look at the new academies and you look at most of the pictures you show, it's white men. And fire departments historically in this country have white men. And so anyway, what is your diversity percentages of your workforce compared to the community you serve?
I can get those numbers for you. I haven't been asked this question directly before. I appreciate the question. I think as far as our recruitment numbers go, and I would say that our Overland Park also reflects your concerns as far as recruitment process. I can tell you over the last 3 years, we have established a recruitment committee, which we've never had before, which is made up of a cross-section of our employees, including Megan here. That's why she's on here for her recruitment profile. And they have went out, and we used to just basically target the metro area for recruitment. We've actually expanded that to as far north as Nebraska, down into Oklahoma, and really tried to get into high school programs. I mean, in all those states, really expanded our profile when that comes to that. But also the cadet program is part of that. So we can target individuals who have graduated or are going through a program at the high school level. Not just Blue Valley has a fire science program. Olathe has a fire science program. There's some Kansas City schools that are starting. Shawnee Mission has one right up the road here. And so the cadet program, we actually borrowed it from our police department because that's what they've done to increase their diversity numbers, is to bring people on, then send them to an academy. Ours is a little different. We don't have a police like the police academy at JUCO. We don't have that at our disposal. We have fire science programs in the colleges here in the metro. But we started with 3. We hope to expand that in the future to bring on high school students who have a passion for this, want to pursue this, and then we'll bring them on, have them work for us part-time in different aspects. They can't work out in the field. They're not certified. And then as they basically help them get through their requirements to get their certifications, and then allow them to participate in our hiring process once they have completed all of their certificates. And we have 3 right now, one of which is a female, but we're continuing to work on it. I mean, it's not perfect, and we haven't got to where we want to achieve, but I can get you the numbers we have now compared to where we were 5 years ago. But we've really expanded and built out this recruiting team that we've never had before.
Any other questions for Chief Long? Okay. Well, we appreciate, I would just bring to the council's attention, I know that Chief Long is working with Mr. Engel and our 10-year contract is coming up in 2025. So we'll be hearing more from you about that.
Yep.
And how that might hopefully continue as a partnership for many more
Absolutely.
years. But I think it's impressive. I would just like to reiterate what Chief Long talked about in reference to less than 30 fire departments across the nation. Over 27,000 fire departments have an ISO of 1 and are accredited in populations that they serve. So that's pretty impressive. So we
Hey,
appreciate it.
Chief, I'm sorry, if I could just, could you explain to everybody what the benefit to a resident would be with an ISO rating of 1?
Yeah, so the ISO rating really has to go with your insurance premiums. So when you basically apply for your homeowner's insurance, or a commercial occupancy needs insurance for their facility, based upon their fire department's ability to respond and the capabilities and that rating, it gives you a break on your insurance premiums. So a fire department, we get phone calls all the time from down south to where they'll call us and want to know what the ISO rating is for the area down south, which is separate from Overland Park proper and Merriam proper. ISO 1 here, when we go back through our ISO rating, we'll probably get a split rating for down south, and really that has to do with infrastructure as well, so hydrant locations, but capabilities of the fire department. So you get a break on your insurance premiums for your home and commercial occupancies based on the capabilities of your fire department. So,
Saving us money, and we appreciate that. Okay. If there are no other questions, thank you, Chief Long. Okay, next item's up on the mayor's report. Is I always like to say some of the things that's been going on with myself and the council. I attended the Johnson County Mayor's Luncheon, obviously talked to other mayors in the county, and Mr. Engel and I met with Sharice Davids and her entourage, and talk a little bit about the Corps of Engineers and kind of where we stand on that and how we're going to be needing more funding coming forward. And she's fully supportive of that, and it's just a phone call away. I'm real pleased to see the great turnout that we had for our Merriam Plaza Library ribbon cutting. Everybody but Mr. Neal was the only one that was unable to attend. All your other council members were down there for that ribbon cutting ceremony, and we have the pictures to prove it, don't we? So, but really glad to have them still here in our city and all the things that's going to be going on for generations to come. Okay, 4, looks like Chris Hands and I attended the Flags for Freedom Committee meeting that occurred. And then Chris Hands and I met with Mr. Engel, obviously, to prepare this agenda. I didn't have a whole lot. Did I miss anything for the council people for other things you might have attended? Okay. So, well, I wouldn't say we were slackers, but it was a little shorter this time. Okay, well, moving right along, that's all I had for the mayor's report. First item up is consider approval of purchase of real property. It looks like we've got Mr. Engel coming to the podium, and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. The next item on your agenda is consider approval of a real estate contract for real property located at 5726 Merriam Drive. The property at 5726 Merriam Drive is located in historic downtown. It is immediately to the north of the Merriam Marketplace and across the street from 5701 Merriam Drive, the former Irene B. French Community Center. It currently is owned by NIMBY LLC, which is actually the Price Brothers. It's a LLC that we're all familiar with how those work from Mr. Block's previous educational presentations on that, but it is under lease and has been operated as Rigdon Incorporated for the last several years. It's important to point out that lease actually comes with the property purchase and is in effect until the end of the year, till 12/31. That will net us about $39,000 in rents. The way that lease is set up is that they actually are responsible for almost 100% of everything, the liability. They're responsible for the maintenance. Anything that breaks, they have to fix. It's a pretty one-sided lease that they've entered into with Price Brothers. So, but that does come with the property. This property went on sale. It's been on sale on and off several times over the last several years. It was listed again last summer, I believe, late summer. At that point in time, we had some high-level conversations with Pat Murphy with Evergreen Realty, who is the realtor there. Came back, had some conversations with the council. In those conversations with the council, we talked about the possibilities that exist at that property in terms of potentially the Upper Turkey Creek project, potentially some implementation of the comprehensive plan, as well as just being able to guide future development at that particular site. I think at the end of those conversations, we decided that, can you go to the next slide? Yep, so we went back to after we had those conversations, I think ultimately at the end of those conversations, we agreed that in order to best control future development at that location, it would make a lot of sense to make an offer at it. We had an appraisal. The county appraised it at one price. The fair market appraisal, which we have to follow for the Federal Uniform Act, which I'll get into here in a second, appraised it at $400,000. It had been listed at $575,000. After negotiation, we've settled at $425,000. Again, that's $425,000 with a lease in place that'll net us about $40,000. Next. So just in the context of downtown, again, immediately to the north of Merriam Drive, so this is not a property that we would not normally be looking at. We're always looking at properties that are adjacent to city properties just for the expansion of parkland or other facilities that we may have or future uses. So this is not necessarily a property that we would be stuck with, I guess. Next slide. It is important to point out that it is in the floodplain. So it is subject to, if we ever come to some sort of viable project with the Corps of Engineers, it is quite possible some or all of this property will be needed for that project. Because of that, we are recommending and have thus far followed what they call the Uniform Act. We've used an attorney that is specialized in all of this. We've had conversations with the Corps to make sure that we're in compliance with this process. Essentially, that is when we got this appraised, we had to get a secondary appraisal to make sure that the first appraisal was correct. That is, again, to protect the property owner. It's also to make sure that there's some checks and balances and that we're not chasing people out of here. We are suggesting, because of the possibility, that we will research what the next several steps would be to continue to follow that act. That would be for, as we've talked in the past, relocation and reestablishment and moving costs. The benefit of, and those are reimbursements, so they would not come until likely next year. But the benefit of following the Uniform Act at that point is we will likely know if we have a viable project. If we know we have a viable project and we follow that process, and the Corps needs some or all of this project, we will get all of these expenses reimbursed. So whatever we pay for this property, including the moving, reestablish, and the purchase price, we will get credited for our portion of the contribution to the Corps project. Because real estate, we don't get reimbursed for, it counts towards our monetary contribution to the Corps project. Did I say that clear enough? Did we track with all of that? Our contribution, the property that we purchase will count towards our contribution to the project. But we have to follow these regulations. So that is why we are recommending that we follow these regulations. That being said, I'm happy to answer any questions about it. I think, again, purchase price well under the asking price. This asking price is less than it was 2 years ago. They're pretty proud of that property, and we're pretty proud of the fact that we could wrestle it from them at $425. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Go ahead, Mr. Leahy.
With a tenant that doesn't own the building, are we still responsible for relocation costs if we don't renew their lease at the end of?
We will be. We will have to relocate them because the purchase of it and the Corps project ultimately is disrupting their ability to continue to operate there. So even though the lease is up, it does create a burdensome, it displaces their business.
All right.
Good question.
Other questions for Mr. Engel? Okay, I see no other questions from Mr. Engel. I would entertain a motion if we're interested in the purchase of this property. Go ahead, Ms. Haynes.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council approve a real estate contract for the purchase of 5726 Merriam Drive in an amount not to exceed $435,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I hear a second? Go ahead, Ms. Shadridge.
Mr. Mayor, I second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodridge.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
And thank you, Madam Clerk. Looks like next item up is we're already down to monthly finance report. I think we've got Director Oliver coming forward.
Good evening. Your finance report was in the packet. Just a couple of things to note. If you look at the sales tax data on that first page, that's now for the entire year of 2023, so you can see how that year turned out, and we did quite well. And then the other item is next week, the auditors are here, and so we're about to go through our annual audit. We anticipate that that will go well. If there were any questions about what was in the finance report, I would certainly entertain any questions.
Any questions for Director Oliver? I see no questions. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Keep the money coming in. Okay, next item up, looks like we have a community development update. Director Dyer, come to the podium.
Hey, Mayor, council members, Brian Dyer, Community Development Director. Just some updates of construction projects that are going on throughout the city. Evan Health Cancer Center, they continue to be on a path to opening up here in the next couple of months, so that project's going along well. Looks fantastic over there. Merriam Grand Station, activity continues over there, so you all started to see those two buildings that have been under erection right there at the corner. So it's great to see those kind of things getting really close to Antioch and Shawmish Parkway. So that project's been going along fantastic. Had great communication with the developer and builder. Also continue to have communications with Evergy in regards to undergrounding. That continues to move forward as well. And then also Aristocrat Motors, Mercedes, if you haven't been down 67th Street, suddenly there are walls and a very large building, so that is well underway. Other things I do want to add, talk about a little bit is our grant programs, both the sustainability and the exterior residential grant. We're running a little bit behind on the number of applications and than what we normally do. So if you know anybody who's interested in doing a project on their home, whether it be just exterior improvements or sustainability improvements, encourage them to contact David Easley, Neighborhood Services Manager, so we can get them on the list. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Director Dyer? I see no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, well, looks like the next item up would just be informational items for the Public Art Committee meeting minutes that was in our packets. Is Lauren out there? Yes, okay. I don't, we can call it forward if you have any specific questions. I would just like to say that Sean McConnell is now our new committee chair for that committee down there. And so he will be taking the helm as that committee moves forward. And I think they're seeking out a couple additional people maybe to serve on that committee. So if you know anybody out there that is interested in serving on the Public Art Committee, please send them, I guess, to Lauren's way, and she'll get it. Oh, there you go. Thank you. We'll apply on our website. And I know we have a lot in Ward 4, but not that we wouldn't take any more Ward 4 people, but it would be nice to see some other wards represented. So. Okay, well, I think the next item up we have, is executive session. Do you have anything, Mr. Engel, that you want to cover from a staff perspective before we go?
I don't, but I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has for me.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Engel concerning other staff items potentially? Okay, well, I have requested an executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel, and I would entertain a motion for that. Go ahead, Ms.
Mr.
Haynes.
Mayor, I move that the governing body recess into executive session to discuss the city administrator's annual performance review pursuant to KSA 7543-19B1, which allows the governing body to hold an executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel. Present will be the governing body and the city attorney. The meeting will reconvene in the council chambers at 8:10.
Okay. We should have plenty of time. 8:10, okay, I have a motion, I have a second. Ms. Shadridge.
Mr. Mayor, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder. Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodridge.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, and before we break, I would just like to remind everybody that there will be a work session for the short-term rental, discussion of short-term rentals. I assume that will be upstairs and this one will be downstairs. So for the executive session, we'll go in there, and then afterwards, after we get back in there and reconvene, then we will adjourn upstairs for the work session. So, thank you. Okay, well, we will go ahead and call the, we're good, right?
Reconvene the meeting.
We're good to reconvene the meeting, according to our clerk. All right, I don't know that we have anything else. At this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn so that we can go to our work session.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Sands made a motion. Okay, Ms. Yadrich?
Mr. Mayor, second.
We have a motion second, Madam Clerk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.